Robservations with Robert Meyer Burnett.
Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, of course, your sommelier of sci-fi and cinema, your archbishop of Banterbury, your chancellor of cheerfulness, your evangelist of the imagination, and of course, your existential Mr. Rogers. That's right, Robert Meyer Burnett. And once again, I'm robcasting at you imagination connoisseurs, you members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community. This is Robservations, the show about something. Robservations episode number 659, 7 days away. God created the world in 6 days, and on the seventh day, he gave us Satan. We are a few days away from episode 666, where we celebrate that great pop culture icon, Satan, the great antagonist. You can already go in and see my work in progress, the Satanic playlist for Robservations episode 666 is available on Spotify. Find me at Robert Meyer Burnett. And by the way, the first song on that is from Ella Fitzgerald. That's the kind of playlist it is. Let's take this all in good fun. Let's not get all upset. The devil is a great antagonist in all kinds of movies. I mean, George Burns made a movie called Oh God, You Devil. Would you get mad at George Burns? He also played God. Anyway, it's coming. It's coming next week. Be prepared. That's what the Boy Scouts say, even for Satan. Anyway, very excited, very excited. Tomorrow, of course, is Easter, and I found a picture of the megalith statues on Easter Island to celebrate Easter, and an interesting article on Medium that I figured I would share with the Post-Geek Singularity. Not exactly necessarily entertainment related, but art related, art adjacent, maybe entertainment adjacent. So I figured, I would delve into this considering, well, to be honest, for those of you who are on our members, we just finished an epic, almost 3-hour members chat. If you're a member of the channel, we do bi-weekly Zoom calls. It's always great to see everyone's faces and talking to people directly. Great. Today was a really good chat. I thank you all for showing up, those who did. It was a lot of fun. I really had a good conversation with everyone. I thought we had a fine time. By the way, an announcement. Whining About Movies is not going to be tonight. Whining About Movies episode 125 is going to be tomorrow, where the ace, the arbiter of cinematic excellence and the enchantress of entertainment, Elizabeth Gwendolyn Bell, will be here to talk about her thoughts on Godzilla versus Kong. And you are going to get to see the first part of her, what could be a trilogy, who knows, her epic film, Doll Quest. Yes, that's right. I keep losing action figures and finding them in her studio, on her tabletop. And as you can imagine, this is not something that I like. But it's going to be good. You're going to see the results of her work. It's a lot of fun. And the vocal stylings of Darren Doctorman and my, deft comedic scripting skills. So look out for that. So this article, Umair Haque, H-A-Q-U-E, wrote this article. I found it on Medium. It was published today. And I really, basically, you know what? I saw this picture. It Easter Island, and I'm like, I want to talk about that because it's Easter. Because why not? But I love this. I love this article title. Is our civilization going to be a blip in history? We need to go deep. We need to go to the deep past to find a way back to the future. I thought this was a very interesting article. Let's delve into it, shall we? There's a question that echoes in my head these days, maybe in yours too. Surveying the mess we seem to have made of things, I can't help but wonder, is our civilization just a blip in history? Now, the way we tell the story of civilization, not just ours, but the idea of one, goes like this. Civilization is the natural destiny of human beings, and our civilization is the logical endpoint of all those which have gone before. It's better in every way, superior, it's technologically advanced, and more moral and just and wise and noble, and so on. Our civilization is the epitome of a thing called by Americans human progress, and its shining, glorious ideal. Only in our civilization have these things called freedom and justice and equality really ever existed. You know how that picture of how primates evolved into us? Civilization evolves in the same way too, and our civilization is the Homo sapiens of them all, the endpoint, the apex, and the pinnacle. Only, the deeper I look into history, the more that story seems to be, well, a fairy tale, a modern myth, a fable told, as such stories are, to gratify and maybe even propagandize or at least self-aggrandize. Let me explain what I mean. Our civilization is a few hundred years old at most. If we had to name it, I'd call it industrial capitalist civilization. I'll come back to that point. Do you know how old indigenous cultures are? Multiple millennia. The Aborigines in Australia have been there for 40,000 years or more. This is the oldest continuous way of life, aka living civilization, in the world. Do you know how long Native Americans have been there? For at least 10 millennia, if not longer. That's 10,000 years. And that way of life continued largely unchanged until, well, we arrived to annihilate it. And almost totally succeeded. Luckily, plenty of native cultures and tribes still exist with living memories of the old ways. Do you see the point I'm trying to make? Let me make it more explicit. Our civilization is barely a few centuries old, but the world's oldest civilizations are orders of magnitude older than that. Our civilization is on the precipice, if not outright disaster, then at least the ghastly future that so many scientists are warning of. You can add economists like me to the roster of minds deeply concerned about whether or not our civilization can survive. It doesn't feel like it, does it? Why is that? Why did indigenous civilizations last multiple millennia easily until we arrived? While we've barely lasted a few centuries and already stand on the implosive brink of decades of self-made calamities, from climate change to mass extinction to ecological collapse. Well, because they thought and acted in almost opposite ways to us. It's hard to put into words, though, precisely because we don't have good words anymore, which gives away that our civilization is poor in a certain way. They lived in harmony. They saw the world as an interconnected family. They acted to minimize the harm they did. They saw a living planet around them which nurtured all beings in its bosom. They were the children of the earth. We are, what are we? We're the children of machines, of money, of bits, digitizing us into avatars. We are completely, shockingly, horrifyingly indifferent, at least to them, at the total annihilation of the living world. When I say annihilation, I mean it. Here is a startling statistic. In terms of biomass, 36% is human, 60% is livestock, and just 4% is wild. That means that 36% of the biomass on Earth, us, is killing another 60%. And just 4% is allowed to live free. Is it any wonder there's a mass extinction going on? We exist in an egocentric way. Me, me, me. As long as I get my designer jeans or internet-enabled treadmill, I don't care what harm I do. Never mind the fact that I could just go for a walk in the woods, probably. No, I need to live in a certain way to feel good about myself. I need to have status through power over. Power over other living things, people, animals, plants, oceans, rivers, forests. The more of these that I consume, the more powerful that I am, the better I feel about myself. In contrast, they lived and live in an allocentric or all-centric way. Who comes first? Not me. The tribe does. The ancestors do. The skies and the forests and the rivers and the oceans do. We think that's so much gobbledygook. By the way, that's written in this article. One of my favorite terms, gobbledygook, right there. We think that's so much gobbledygook. But is it? We're the one who thinks there's a magical father in the sky who's going to send everyone else who doesn't believe, including every living thing, to a place of eternal flames. Tell me that's not a myth to make people behave themselves in anonymous impersonal societies, a children's fable. Tell me that seeing the world as alive doesn't make more sense than imagining some magic person in the sky is going to save you, no matter how much suffering you've caused in this life. Tell me, because I want to know. We think that when indigenous people say, this forest or this ocean or this river contains the spirits of my ancestors and I have to respect them, that they're being irrational. And so we go out and we chop down the lungs of the earth and pollute the waters of life with our garbage to the point that our own survival's threatened. Tell me who the crazy one is. We think that the idea of a forest or a mountain or a river contains spirits of ancestors is foolish and childish. But those trees and those waters grow from the carbon of the dead they respect in a vast and beautiful cycle of life, who are allowed to live on in those ways, in the trees, in the plants, and the animals, and so on, because every being has a right to live and die in dignity. Do you know what we do with our spirits of the dead? We drill for them, we extract them, and we burn them. They're called oil and gas. They're basically organic slush. And because we don't respect the spirits of our dead, we're turning our planet into an overheated cinder. Tell me, who is the crazy one again? Meanwhile, this fossil fuel-based economy that industrial capitalist civilization is based on, you might think to yourself, well, at least we got rich. Wrong. Bzzz, we didn't. We're a dismal failure as a civilization. We destroyed the planet and annihilated life on it. We didn't even get rich. Our income as a civilization is just $10,000 a person. And even that's a statistical illusion, which masks the fact that half of humanity, or more, lives without decent sanitation or clean water or 3 meals a day. We can't even take care of ourselves. Despite the disrespect we've done to the planet and life on it and our ancestors and those who come after us, and yet we believe this strange and foolish fairy tale that our civilization is the grand endpoint, the telos of them all. Tell me, we're not the crazy ones. That's a bit of a rant, I guess, or is it? I don't know. I've come to feel more strongly about this subject than I guess I even knew. Let me try and ground all that in a different way then. We see our civilization as the best because it's the smartest. But the truth is that while we are the most technologically advanced, we are deeply impoverished in other, maybe more fundamental ways. What do I mean? Consider the way that indigenous peoples slaughter animals. They kill them with great respect. They thank them for their lives. They don't take more than they need. And what do? We're always trying to take more than we need. The whole point of our civilization is for sociopathic billionaires to pile up money they can never spend in bulging bank accounts, and all that money is death. Trees, animals, rivers, forests, which have already been destroyed. Think of factory farming. Do you thank the animal you just ate? Nope. Maybe you thank the Father in the sky. But what did he have to do with it? Did he give his life for yours? Maybe you think so, but the truth is that the animal actually did. See my point? I'm not trying to sound like some kind of radical vegan, although maybe that's what I'm becoming. I'm just pointing out a set of flaws. We are technologically advanced, but we're deeply impoverished relationally and emotionally. Indigenous people have relationships, real ones, with the living world around them. We wouldn't know what to say to the fox picking through our garbage, desperate to exist in the world we've paved over with concrete and steel and glass. Older cultures than ours believed the entire world was alive and felt things. Suffering, grief, joy, wonder, friendship. We're amazed to discover that elephants can grieve, and even more astonished to see that even though we keep them in cages, all kinds of animals would still be our friends, even if we weren't busy slaughtering them. It seems to me that we're busy rediscovering so many of the things that older cultures than ours knew intimately. The world is alive and feels deeply, from an elephant to a fox to a fish. All these things play and love and grieve and bond. The world is a web in our modern terms, or to use a simpler one, an older one, a family of life, bonded in love and pain, in need and grief, one life taken for another given. And our place in the world is not above everything else, but only beside it, like a friend. When we live as friends with all beings, then we respect the spirits of our ancestors who taught us the wisdom of this way of living no violently, which we call truth, dignity, nobility, and beauty. Our civilization is not what we imagine it to be. It is a marvelous predatory machine, that much is true, but it is annihilating itself to death. Soon, there won't be a planet to live on, at least the way we're accustomed to. Nature is already taking its revenge on us, throwing plague and fire and flood our way. The ancients would have said, the world is alive, and if you disrespect it, if you take more than you need, if you are violent and exploitative and predatory, if you live without gratitude for the truth of life and death, its fragility, then you will pay the price. The old gods will strike back. The fire will roar, and the flood will pour, and the plague will howl. Were they wrong? Or are we wrong? It's true that science has helped us come a long way. No, I don't want to live without antibiotics or chemotherapy. That is missing my point and caricaturing it. The ancients were far more sophisticated than us in certain ways, morally and ethically. They were smarter than us socially, relationally, emotionally. We laugh at all that today as animism. But there was more than a grain of truth in it. The world is alive, we're shocked to discover. But we're the idiots for not seeing what was obvious before our eyes. Of course the world is alive. It's a measure of our alienation that we think it's some kind of novel and marvelous discovery that things apart from us can feel pain and grief and love and wonder, can empathize, know, bond, share, create. They always have. It's a measure of our folly that we marvel at learning things the ancients always knew, all those millennia ago. Like if we don't care for our world, we die. Or that the ancestors live on in the things around us, their carbon becoming tomorrow's living beings, or its polluted skies, or that the first moral duty of any living thing is not to take more than one needs. I wonder sometimes, who is the civilized one at all? Like I said, they've been around here for millennia, and they're going to be around for millennia too. But us, those of us trapped in an industrial capitalist civilization and its foolish games of materialism, desire, numbness, rage, isolation, hate, you tell me how long you think we're really going to be around. And if treating the world and everything living in it, from the oceans to the forests to the animals to the rivers to the rest of us, the way most of us do, like our garbage dump, like a body to violate, like a slave with indifference, stupidity, cruelty, and violence, whether any of that is civilized at all. That was not me. That was Meyer writing on Medium today. It was an article he published today. Now, I read his stuff a lot. Some people don't like what he has to say, but I liked this particular article, especially the day before Easter. Easter, if you want to look at it, the pagan idea of it, of course, bunnies and eggs and all that, you go back and find out what the origins of those things are. It's sort of uplifting, nature and all that. And then the Christian way, the Judeo-Christian way of looking at things, or maybe just the Christian way, the idea of resurrection, that the Savior of man, the Son of God, came back to life after the crucifixion and came back to us. Well, what I find interesting, and the reason that I wanted to sort of touch on this, is I watched Netflix this week. My God, Elizabeth and I watched Netflix this week, and I have to tell you, I watched a very disturbing documentary, and it was very depressing. And it was a documentary called Seaspiracy. And it's Seaspiracy, and already things are flying, and I wanted to read an article about this topic. Because, bear with me, now I've given you the doom and gloom. I did want to read an article about this Netflix documentary that I watched this week and quite enjoyed, I have to say, depressing though it might have been. And it was called Seaspiracy. Hang on, let me just pull it up. And first of all, it was a documentary that was about, it started out with a man searching for seafood that had been marked dolphin safe. And it kind of went from there. And he basically went on an odyssey that led him on a journey where he realized that commercial fishing posed an even greater threat to the planet than even, say, burning down the rainforests. And in this documentary, they basically talk about the fact that, you know how we hear about plastic in the, show your support for journalism. How we hear about plastics in the ocean, the Pacific gyres, and all of that. I have a friend that actually went out to the Pacific gyre on a boat, Cindy Matsky. She's an oceanographer, a marine biologist, and she went out there and saw it for herself. And we find out in this documentary that most of the plastics in the ocean are not single-use plastics. They're commercial fishing nets. And this documentary, this gentleman and his journey, he goes after, eventually, the entire commercial fishing industry and how much damage it does to the oceans. Those giant nets that are miles long and all of this. So I watched this, again, like this article, incredibly depressing. But at the end of this documentary, something happened that I was not expecting. It was like this article that I just wrote. It was just depressing. You think, oh my God, we're doomed because, of course, the carbon in the atmosphere, more sea life, plant life in the sea, is way more important to the lungs of our planet than even the Amazon rainforests. And the fact that commercial fishing is having such a detrimental effect on our oceans. I mean, why we allow this to continue, I don't know, just like that article pointed out. But at the end, they had all of these biologists and scientists and all the people that had been full of doom and gloom. At the end of the documentary, Seaspiracy, they were all optimistic. And they said, the oceans can bounce back so quickly that if we curtail the kind of mass commercial fishing that we're doing and sort of bring it back and regulate it, our oceans can snap back fairly quickly. And even though this documentary that I was left with this sinking pit in my stomach, at the end of it, I found all of these scientists that had been purveyors of doom and gloom for the previous, 90 minutes or whatever. In the last moments of the documentary, they're like, look, we can change this if we want very quickly. And I didn't feel so down. I didn't feel so disturbed. I was like, well, then there is hope. And I thought to myself, that's pretty much how I feel about everything. We can change the world if we want to, and we can change it very quickly. But even this, I figured I need to read this article from The Guardian that was published on March 31st, and it's by Karen McVeigh, and it says this. It's part of their environment, and it was in The Guardian. Seaspiracy, Netflix documentary accused of misrepresentation by participants. NGOs and experts quoted in the film say it contains misleading claims, erroneous statistics, and out-of-context interviews. Of course it does, because, isn't that what all documentaries do? But I just thought I'd give it equal time here. A Netflix documentary about the impact of commercial fishing has attracted celebrity endorsements and plaudits from fans with its damning picture of the harm the industry does to ocean life. But NGOs, sustainability labels, and experts quoted in Seaspiracy have accused the filmmakers of making misleading claims using out-of-context interviews and erroneous statistics. Seaspiracy, made by the team behind the award-winning 2014 film Cowspiracy, which was backed by Leonardo DiCaprio, pours doubt on the idea of sustainable fishing, shines a spotlight on the aquaculture industry, and introduces the notion of blood shrimp, seafood tainted with slave labor and human rights abuses. Launched last week, the 90-minute film is already trending on the platform as one of its top 10 most watched films and programs, and has been praised by celebrities including Bryan Adams, the vegan Canadian rock star, who urged his followers to watch it and stop eating fish. Chris Froome, the 7 Grand Tour-winning British cyclist, tweeted that, "My mind has been blown by the film." George Monbiot, the environmentalist and Guardian columnist who appears in it, described it on Twitter as a brilliant expose of the greatest threat to marine life, fishing. Directed by Ali Tabrizi, a filmmaker from Kent, the wide-ranging documentary questions the sustainable seafood movement and looks at the way Dolphin Safe and Marine Stewardship Council labels may not be able to provide the assurances consumers are looking for. Representatives of both organizations have accused the filmmakers of misleading statements. An executive with the international organization responsible for the Dolphin Safe tuna label, Mark Palmer, has said his comments were taken out of context. In a scene in the film, Palmer, the associate U.S. director of the International Marine Mammal Project, the IMMP, which is operated by the Earth Island Institute, was asked if his group could guarantee that no dolphins were ever killed in any tuna fishery anywhere in the world. I answered there are no guarantees in life, but that drastically reducing the number of vessels intentionally chasing and netting dolphins, as well as other regulations in place, that the number of dolphins that are killed is very low, he said. The film took my statement out of context to suggest that there is no oversight and we don't know whether dolphins are being killed. That is not true. In response to the film, the IMMP said Seaspiracy falsely claims that the Dolphin Safe label is a conspiracy to benefit the global fisheries industries. David Phillips, the director of the IMMP, said the film had chosen to grossly distort and mischaracterize the aims of the label. In a statement, Phillips says, the Dolphin Safe Tuna program is responsible for the largest decline in dolphin deaths by tuna fishing vessels in history. The dolphin kill levels have been reduced by more than 95%, preventing the indiscriminate slaughter of more than 100,000 dolphins every year. Phillips said Seaspiracy did a disservice to organizations doing critical work to protect oceans and marine life. Professor Christina Hicks, an environmental social scientist at Lancaster University, who was interviewed for the film, tweeted, "Unnerving to discover your cameo in a film slamming an industry you love and have committed your career to." A spokesperson for the Marine Stewardship Council said that while the film drew attention to known problems in the fishing industry, it included misleading claims, including that there is no such thing as sustainable fishing and that the MSC certification was not credible. Some of the known problems in the film highlights bycatch, overfishing, and destruction of marine ecosystems are precisely the issues the MSC certification process is designed to address, a spokesperson said. The positive impact of our program has been recognized by the United Nations as being important in helping to support ocean biodiversity. Fisheries that ask to go through an MSC assessment work hard to reach the verifiable and science-based standards we set, ensuring that fish stocks are conserved for future generations. Critics also argue that one of the most shocking statistics quoted in the film is wrong. A stark prediction from a 2006 study that the ocean will be empty by 2048 included in the documentary has been contradicted by the forecast's author. Oceana, an NGO campaigning for ocean protection, claimed it was misrepresented in the film because an interview with a former Oceana staffer appeared to suggest it did not have a definition for sustainability. In a statement, Oceana said, "Choosing to abstain from consuming seafood is not a realistic choice for the hundreds of millions of people around the world who depend on coastal fisheries, many of whom are also facing poverty, hunger, and malnutrition." However, Professor Callum Roberts, a marine conservationist at the University of Exeter, also quoted in Seaspiracy, has not yet seen it, disagreed with its critics. He said, "It's not been made for its scientific rigor. It has used the techniques of film storytelling to make its case. My colleagues may rue the statistics, but the basic thrust of it is that we are doing a huge amount of damage to the ocean, and that's true. At some point, you run out. Whether it's 2048 or 2079, the question is the trajectory in the wrong direction or the right direction?" In response, Tabrizi said he had approached the MSC for an interview, but it had declined. He said, "The renowned marine scientists Dr. Sylvia Earle and Professor Callum Roberts, who exposed the failure of sustainable fishing in the film, explain how the term sustainable is so vague that even bycatch of seabirds, dolphins, and seals can be considered sustainable. This is not what consumers think of when they pick up a fillet of fish with the MSC blue tick." He denied allegations Palmer's comments were taken out of context or that the film mischaracterized or distorted the aims of the label. "We did not claim in the film that Dolphin Safe label is a conspiracy to benefit global fisheries industries. We asked if they could guarantee Dolphin Safe tuna is in fact dolphin safe, to which Mark Palmer replied that they could not guarantee it, and that their observers who oversee these fishing vessels come of the time can be bribed. The label does not say 95% dolphin safe. It claims to be dolphin safe. In the words of Mark Palmer himself, 1 dolphin and you're out. This wasn't taken out of context." Tabrizi said he was grateful for Hicks' contribution, and it was a shame she felt the way she did, but said it was unrealistic to expect everyone to align with the film's conclusions. He said he did not expect people who were facing poverty, hunger, or malnutrition around the world to reduce or eliminate their fish consumption, and that these were not the people looking on Oceana's website for advice on sustainability. Responding to the use of the 2048 statistic, he said, "We're not scientists, nor did we claim to be. Despite there being some confusion about this particular projection, the overall state of fisheries are in severe decline." So, it's funny to me, as somebody who believes in common sense, you think to yourself, all right, think about anything that you do, watching this documentary. I'm watching this documentary, and it did not make outlandish claims. As a matter of fact, they also went out and filmed. They got film. They actually have footage of giant fishing nets bringing in large dead dolphin populations. And you look at it and you're like, even if they bought that footage, even if it's stock footage from somewhere, you're watching, animals being killed. My whole point, and then what I wanted to share is, we can change these things. They're not hard. You can change anything in your life if you want to. It's just a question of, do we? I mean, obviously, we're lazy. Matter of convenience. I can't even fold all the clothes that I've taken out of the dryer into the bathroom where I fold them and stack them up. I can't be bothered to take them out of the bathroom, much to Elizabeth's chagrin. Like, why can't you take these clean clothes out, fold them up, and put them in your drawer? I'm too busy, babe. Oh, really? You can't take the time out to do it? Why not? I mean, that's the real question. Why not? Let's do things. It's within our power. We can do whatever we want. If you have the wherewithal to do something, we can do whatever we want. And one of the things that I think is uplifting about being an imagination connoisseur is we, maybe more than anybody, we can imagine this great world where we aren't doing stupid things. And it's always offset. How do we live today? How do you survive today when you can't ask me to think about a year from now or 2 years from now or 10 years from now or 20 years from now? Can you? I need to live today. But we, as an imagination connoisseurs, we can imagine exactly where we might be in 20 years or 50 years or 100 years, long after we're gone. But the fact is, we all know it. Look at any footage. Look at any footage of any factory farm. Now, am I putting down factory farms? Well, no, but you can't look at a factory farm, anyone who's at all familiar with any kind of an animal. And I think for the most part, like, I've never met a tiger or a lion, so maybe, but it's apparent to me I'd never lived with dogs before either. I live with dogs, and I haven't before. It is very obvious to me after living with dogs for 3 years that our dogs are incredibly empathetic and intelligent. I have to say, one more so than the other. I mean, I do live with kind of a mentally deficient, crazy Irish doodle, but maybe that's her temperament. But on the other hand, we have our Burner doodle, who is clearly smarter than we are and probably one of the most empathetic creatures I've ever met in my life. And it's apparent that being around these dogs, they're smart. Like, Gilbert will come up to me, and if he wants my attention, he literally puts his paw up and puts his paw on, like, my leg if I'm sitting there, and to get my attention. And then he literally can convey in the loudness of his woof. Sometimes he's like, woof, or he'll woof a little louder, and he knows I understand what he's saying. Like, and there's intelligence behind his eyes. Like, he understands. He's a very smart dog. And I am not anthropomorphizing my canine friend. I think anybody, my friend Carrie David, who made a documentary about women on the front lines of the poaching industry in Africa, well, they understand when they're seeing these great elephants. It's clear to anyone who's been around large animals that there is an empathy, there is an intelligence going on. Same with dolphins. Just look at the way they swim together. Now, we might want to tell ourselves, convince ourselves that it's not real or they're not really smart, but we really do know the truth. And we share this planet, and this planet is an ecosystem that's developed over millions of years. We're just passers through. But I think one of the things that we as imagination connoisseurs can do, we're the ones that can imagine, well, in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, when the dolphins found out that the Vogons were going to destroy the Earth to make way for a hyperspace bypass, they lit out, they took off, and they left us a message. So long, thanks for all the fish. Maybe one day that'll happen. Maybe the dolphins will know before we do, because maybe somebody, we don't know, was in communication and they could go down and they could have read the plans that the Earth was going to be destroyed by a hyperspace bypass. So they knew to leave before it happened. We didn't. But I think we as imagination connoisseurs should always be looking forward. We should always be looking toward the future, because that is where we're going to spend the rest of our lives. And I think it's uplifting. I don't see Earth as being the end of human civilization. I see it as it always has been. It's the beginning of human civilization. I think that we, as imagination connoisseurs, lead. We're at the forefront of not worrying about, we forget looking back into the past. If you're looking back in the past going, these people did this, so-and-so did that, our ancestors, we have to look to the future. Where do we want to be in 10 years? Where do we want to be in 20 years, 30 years, 40 years? Where do we want to be? And we already know where we can go. We already know the technologies that exist and what can happen. I think that we as imagination connoisseurs, we owe it to ourselves, and we owe it to the people that have never been born yet, to make the world a better place, to make the smart plays, to do the smart things, because we already know what they are. It's just, how are we going to get there? How are we going to implement those things? I don't know. But the first step is to imagine that there's a place that we're supposed to be. And that's what imagination connoisseurs do. We're on the front lines. Our imaginations are on the front lines to real change. And on this eve of Easter, a day of resurrection and rebirth, maybe we should think about that. Not something I normally talk about on the show, but I believe in the future of our species. I think we have grand things to do. We're about to fly a helicopter on Mars. How amazing is that? I never thought I'd see the day when there'd be a helicopter, a drone, flying on Mars under its own power that we sent there. I mean, maybe I did imagine it. I didn't know if it really happened during my lifetime. I hoped it is. Pretty incredible. So we'll see. Anyway, what do you guys think? I don't know. Not exactly my normal bill of fare, but why not? Why not? You know what? Omar94 wrote in a letter. And Omar says, "Hi, Rob, moderators, and the Post-Geek Singularity. When it comes to watching action movies, I've noticed something with some people when talking about them, which is they say how the story and characters don't really matter a whole lot since nobody really goes into an action movie looking for that. However, in my movie viewing experience, the action movies I like the most have great action, but the action is balanced with good scripts. Action movies I find either okay or not that good, but have the action as the main positive aspect. As a few examples, I like Die Hard 1 and 3 because they're balanced, with having both good action and good scripts. First Blood, I think, is good, because it has a good script alongside the action. Same thing with Terminator 1 and 2, as the scripts are good to balance the action scenes. The originals of both RoboCop and Total Recall have solid scripts to balance the impressive action scenes. Lethal 1 and Lethal Weapon 2 are like that, since the action scenes are balanced with good stories and characters. That said, I will admit, while there was a little too much comedy in it, which undermines the story, I actually find Lethal Weapon 2 better than the original and the best in the series. Movies like Rambo 2 and 3, for example, I find just okay. I found the best parts of both movies to be the action, especially Rambo 3, which, if I was to rank the Rambo movies from best to worst in terms of action, I would put Rambo 3 as number 1, since all of it was impressive. From all the killings, the shootings, the explosions in the prison, the cave, and the desert. Movies like Cobra, Lethal Weapon 3 and 4, for example, I think are not that good. But I thought the best part of those movies was the action. Cobra has some impressive action scenes, but those are the highlights to me since I found everything else uninteresting. Lethal Weapon 3 and 4 are a bit like that as well, since I found the best parts of both movies to be the action scenes, especially Lethal Weapon 3, which I think is the best in the series in terms of action scenes, from the armored car chase, the subway shootout, the freeway chase, and the climax at the construction site. The scripts for both movies had some good moments and scenes, but they didn't work overall. However, I looked at some behind-the-scenes information, and I noticed both movies were made without completed scripts. Yes, they were. So that's probably why. That was something which I thought about when it comes to action movies, since I have seen some people say how the story and characters don't really matter a whole lot, since nobody really goes into an action movie looking for that. Thanks, and live long and prosper. Omar94. Omar, interesting letter, but I have to say, listen, I think, like you pointed out, action movies are fine, but the best action movies are those like any other movie. The movies that combine great stories with great characters. You know, the raison d'etre of these movies might be to have great action scenes, but the only way great action scenes are elevated and taken to a higher level is if, in fact, you care about the characters and the story. I mean, the great thing about Die Hard is, ultimately, it's a very simple story. It's about a man estranged from his family and estranged from the woman he loves. He's traveled a long way to go hopefully reconcile with her and put his family back together. That's a story we can all identify with. It's a story that you're immediately locked into. That you wind up with Hans Gruber and his band of merry pranksters who are trying to commit one of the biggest heists in history, $650 million of bearer bonds from the Nakatomi Corporation, and it turns into the clusterfuck that it does. How delicious of a clusterfuck, too. You wind up with Die Hard, and it's a movie that continually resonates with people because it's an epic story. It's a simple tale that we all identify with, but in an epic context. And it never scrimps. Every single character you meet, all the secondary characters, even if they get a moment, just a moment to shine, they all shine. And you feel it's a meal as opposed to a snack. You feel that you've actually taken a journey, gone on a real adventure. I mean, it deals with the press. It deals with the police. It deals with local politics. It also deals with John McClane and his wife, Holly. And there's just so much to Die Hard, so many different facets. It feels like a fully realized vision, which is great. And the action is great. And Richard Edlund's 65mm effects are great. So it feels fulfilling when you watch it, even though you know it's, whether you think it's a Christmas movie or not, Die Hard is a fully realized story It feels like you've had a meal. You've been given a reward for the time that you've sat down and given over to the film. So that's what you want. And I think that's important. So our friend Duncan Kinnaird, wrote a letter in to us. He was in today's member chat. I'm going to read this. Hi, Rob. It's me again, Dunk. I'm glad you got a hoot out of the R&B action figure mock-up I sent you the other night. I was in the middle of trying to rediscover my painting mojo, something I've not been doing for several years. The dopey joke of your action figure was a nice distraction for a couple of hours. A nice distraction for an hour or two. That was from what? All Time High from Octopussy? Anyway, that's crazy. I've attached an image that I've been working from. I can't credit for my design. It was heavily lifted from Sid Mead, but it gave me something to get my teeth into. Now to move on and create exciting artwork for the franchise that's been stewing in my head for many, 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 many years. My kids have been nagging at me to dust it off because they love it so much and would like to see something come of it. They even had some merchandise made up for my Christmas present. Without giving too much away, I knew the project would be right up your alley. It would potentially be a new franchise that could spread into all different media, along with toys and figures. At some point, I'd like to introduce you to it, but I understand your reticence in receiving unsolicited material. Maybe you'll be able to give me advice on the best and safest way to start to expose showbiz world to my creations. Well, I'm going to show this piece of art, and I think anybody who knows, say, Blade Runner, which I didn't know, I found this out from Dunk, that here's his own artwork, his own painted artwork. Let me throw this up on the screen for you to check out. And many of you might recognize this right away, especially if you are, in fact, Blade Runner fans. Here it is, as I put it up. So here you go, ladies and gentlemen. This is Duncan's, or Dunk as we know him. Again, he's attached the image that he's been working on. He can't claim credit for the design. It was heavily lifted from Sid Mead, but it gave me something to get my teeth into. So this is what Duncan has done. He was in the middle of trying to rediscover his painting mojo, something he hadn't been doing for several years. The dopey joke of your action figure was a nice distraction for a couple of hours, and it was a bit of fun. I would say, Dunk, you are quite talented. This is, of course, a rendering of J.F. Sebastian from Blade Runner. This is his truck. This is a beautiful piece of work, sir. So thank you for that. Thank you for writing in and sharing it. Quite beautiful. Obviously, you're very talented. I found out that Duncan worked on the miniature unit for movies such as Event Horizon, and he was a friend and he worked for Brian Johnson, which is pretty damn cool. So how awesome is that? Speaking of Die Hard, Omar94 talked about, well, I'll just read it again. You know, normally Omar writes in a lot. I have a lot of backlogs, but since I was talking about Die Hard and since he talked about Die Hard, he also goes on to say, this is for Let's Get Physical Media, but I'm going to read it now. Hi, Robin. Guten Tag, Dieter. Because of how many different director's cuts we've had over the years, which came out on home media, after a different cut was released in theaters, or in the case of Zack Snyder's Justice League, which came on streaming, I'm curious to know if that there's a cut of a movie you would like to see, which has not been seen by anyone. For me, one movie came to mind. It is the 1999 film The 13th Warrior. John McTiernan is the credited director, but he was removed from the film, and Michael Crichton came in and did some reshoots, which delayed the film by a year. The movie which came out is the Michael Crichton cut. Reading about the production, I find out how McTiernan's cut of the film did not do well with test screenings, which caused changes to happen. Apparently, there was drama behind the scenes, as McTiernan and Michael Crichton were constantly fighting about how the movie should be. Also, when McTiernan was making the film, it was called Eaters of the Dead, like the book the film is based on. A number of people who worked on the film spoke very positively on the John McTiernan cut, saying how his cut of the movie was deep and multi-layered as well as being longer, which was considered important because there were a lot of missing scenes in the film which should have been there. That made me curious to see the John McTiernan cut of the 13th Warrior, or as it was called, Eaters of the Dead. That is just me. I'd love to hear from you guys. Thanks, and live long and prosper. Well, Omar, I would say that, look, as I said before, I really want to see the director's cut of Star Trek The Motion Picture, which we've seen on DVD. I'd love to see that restored to 4K. And, of course, I would like to see my fully more refined cut of Free Enterprise to be self-serving. But why not? It's my show. I can be self-serving. Just like I can cry if I want to. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of different versions of films. Obviously, Sergio Leone's Once Upon a Time in America. We've had multiple versions of that. I think that when studios are cutting things for time, it's never a good thing because the reason they're cutting movies is because their commercial concerns are there. And if you're just hacking out time, it's willy-nilly. Like, if you have a reason to want to cut a movie down, I'm all for that. But if you're just doing it for time, that makes no sense. Well, we have to get this many screenings in. Well, that doesn't even take into consideration. If you butcher a film, who's going to want to see it? Doesn't matter how many screenings you have. You have to release the best version of the movie possible. And when studios step in to change things, I'm like, are you people filmmakers? Like, come on. Who are you to do that? I don't know. It's tough. It's tough. So, yeah, what are your director's cuts? Do you have any movies that you all really want to see versions of that maybe don't exist? I don't know. Once again, all the way from Portugal, Mario Lopez is here. He was on our chat. It was good to talk with him live. Hi, Rob. Mario Lopez again. Last night, at least in Portugal, it was night. And I was getting ready to listen to one more Robservations, but to my surprise, there was no program. How dare you? So what could I do instead? I chose to see a film. Zack Snyder's unrated cut of Dawn of the Dead. What a spectacular film. Much has already been said about it, so I just want to mention 3 points. I have the idea that all the songs in this film could be included for your 666 playlist. This is something I love about Zack Snyder's work, is that when we buy a film from him, and whatever it is, it seems that they always have a long version to see and with super interesting extras. In the case of this film, in addition to more minutes of footage and even more gore, we have 2 very interesting extras which can also be seen on YouTube. Here are the links. The first is called Special Report. We interrupt this program. Let me put this in the live chat for everybody. I'm going to put this right down here. So check that out. There we go. Again, these are Dawn of the Dead. And Dawn of the Dead, Andy's Last Days. Actually, I remember both of these special features are really good. So watch them. Enjoy them. I didn't know they were on YouTube, but there they are. So here you go. Those are both in the live chat. Please consult it. In the case of Andy's Last Days, it would have been interesting to see a spin-off where it was possible to see his story. And number 3, here I have to do a little spoiler to the 2004 film. I always wanted, and I know I'm not the only one, a direct sequel to this film to find out what happened to the survivors, especially the character of Ving Rhames. His character, Kenneth, was totally metal, yes. To finish, another suggestion of a song for episode 666. I'm talking about In the House in a Heartbeat by John Murphy. Here's the link. The song was used in 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later. So I'll put that, actually I know that song too. I'll put that in the live chat. You can check that out because it's pretty damn good. So there you go. Whenever I see these 2 films, whether in the most emotional scene of the first film or in the beginning of the second, I get goosebumps when I see what is going on with this fabulous music playing loudly. I also wished for years that they would make a 28 months later, a film always promised but always postponed. Mario signing off. Well, Mario, I want to thank you for writing in. Very much appreciated. You know what that brings me to? I just realized that, of course, Mario was the last person we're giving away on the show today, if you're interested. The short film that I edited, Skyfighter, that was directed by Lucas Kendall, written and directed by Lucas Kendall. I edited the film. We are giving away, it's coming out on Blu-ray. I mean, it's a short film. It's only 15 minutes with 15 minutes of music, but as a special collector's edition, we're giving away a Blu-ray and the accompanying soundtrack, which I'll be giving away on the show. And if you are at all interested in winning this, it's going to be shipped to you in about a month directly from the manufacturer. So you will get it. And I'm going to ask a trivia question. All right? A trivia question. And here is, since we're talking about zombies, here is the trivia question that I have for you. What do... This is kind of a deep cut, but I'm going to ask it anyway. See if anyone knows it. What do George Romero's Dawn of the Dead and Michael Mann's Heat have in common? And it's not actors. I'll tell you that right now. Let's see if, in fact, anyone will get this one. I mean, this is a very deep cut. So if anybody knows the answer. I'm looking to see. DKG Custom says, both shot on a Tuesday. That's like playing Fizbin. I don't see it. It's a very, very deep cut. And it's just one of those things that I know that maybe a lot of people might not know, but you never know if they do or not. Set in the same town. No. The Mall. No. Dawn of the Dead and Heat. No. Yes. Romero Films in Pittsburgh. Nope. Michael Mann's Heat and George Romero's Dawn of the Dead. What do they have in common? Who are two directors who have never been in my kitchen? That's probably true. Both take place in the same town. No, both are filmed in even-numbered years after midnight here. Nope. Nope. You know what? Philadelphia. I'll tell you what the answer is. Pasquale Buba worked on both as a film editor. That's my answer. I know. People are like, oh, come on, Rob. I can see you throwing things at me. Like Tim Matheson had things thrown at him in the Delta House fraternity because, well, let me tell you the story of another total loser. All right, fine. No one got that one. You would. Oh, Bunyan Snipe said Pascal Buba. I'll give that to you, Bunyan Snipe. I think you probably said that. Cockney Spock says I had sex while watching them. Why are you having sex watching Dawn of the Dead or Heat? Come on, man. I'll give that up for Bunyan Snipe. Bunyan Snipe will win that. So Bunyan, my own moderator, you win that one. Just so you know, I'll be giving away those discs for the next couple weeks. So I hope everybody enjoys that. But Bunyan, you can have that disc. So there you go. The same editor. This next letter comes from Jason King. Jason King writes, and Jason King says, "Hi, Rob. I hope all is feng shui in your house. Since you've been pumping up the metal lately, I have 2 words for you, Frank Frazetta, and 3 more, Gath of Baal, the Death Dealer, Prisoner of the Horned Helmet." I meant 3 more sentences, laugh out loud. Could we see a movie eventually made? Are there trademark issues? I think this could be a new franchise for any studio willing to spend a bit of cash, especially if the director had an understanding of 80s fantasy, not just the movies, but fan magazines. Your thoughts? Well, you know, when I was thinking about metal album covers, the one that always comes to mind is the Frazetta artwork that's on the cover of Molly Hatchet's album. That is the Death Dealer, and now you can buy action figures of him. So it is a copywritten artwork, and so if you're going to use or you were going to adapt Frazetta's material, yes, you'd probably have to pay some kind of a rights fee of some kind, and rightfully so, to be honest. And I think definitely there could be that. The problem is, I mean, the last movie I remember that was taken from one painting was Gladiator. They had one painting that Gladiator, as a matter of fact, I'll show you the picture that let's see. Gladiator movie painting. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, here it is. Okay. Let's see if they got the painting. Yeah, here's the painting. So the Gladiator was inspired by a particular painting that the producers showed to Ridley Scott, and they said, "Okay, we want to make a sword and sandals epic, but here's the painting that they chose." And it's by French artist. Hang on, let me put this up. So this painting was the painting that inspired the movie Gladiator, and this is the image because Ridley Scott went to art school and all that. So this was the painting that they showed to Ridley to convince him that there was a movie in it. And here is the painting. This is the painting that they showed Ridley Scott to convince him to make Gladiator, and the painting is by French artist Jean-Léon Jerome. It is Jean-Léon Jerome's, oh man, I can't pronounce this, Police Verso? Like I'm throwing like an accent like it makes any difference. The name Latin for with a turned thumb, meaning thumbs up or down. As the name might suggest, it inspired one of the most iconic moments in the film where the Emperor gives a thumbs up to spare the film's protagonist. Scott himself has spoken on the painting before. In an interview for a book written about the making of the film, he said, "Walter and Doug came by my office and laid a representation of the painting on my desk. That image spoke to me of the Roman Empire in all of its glory and wickedness. I knew right there I was hooked." So, yes, a filmmaker can be inspired by one image. Of course, that movie was it was being made. They were chasing script pages. The film wasn't done. And it wasn't, they wrote the script as they went along, which is not the way to make a movie. So I do think Frazetta's work is very inspirational to people. And in terms of 80s metal, and in terms of things that were inspirational, if you're going to ask, can one painting inspire a movie? Frank Frazetta's painting Death Dealer that was painted in 1973, which is on the cover of Molly Hatchet's album, is incredibly evocative. And if you don't know this image, I mean, I think as a kid growing up in the 70s and 80s, this image was sort of indelible. I think everybody knew it. But this is one of the most iconic fantasy paintings, certainly of my lifetime. Here it is, the cover of Molly Hatchet's album. And I think you can't, when I think of heavy metal or metal, fuck yeah, it's metal, I think of this image. To me, this is the most metal image of all, in terms of how heavy metal goes with fantasy. And again, this is Frank Frazetta. I mean, who wouldn't want to see this movie? Like, I look at this and I'm like, oh yeah, man, I want to see this movie. Because why wouldn't you? This shit is so metal, it goes beyond metal. It doesn't get more metal than this. This is peak metal. So, yeah, I mean, could this be a movie? You'd have to have a great script still. But, hey, why not? Why not have it be a movie? Wouldn't you go see this movie? I mean, I certainly would. Looks good to me. It looks damn good to me. But again, this image is cool, but what's the story? Why is he there? Where did he come from? Where is he going? I don't know. But Jason, a good question. I think with the right screenwriter, this could be a really cool movie. It really could. So, yeah. What are you going to do? I don't know. Would you go see this? I would. I'd go see this movie. Because it'd be dope. Let's see what you guys are saying. I don't know. What are you guys saying? Who knows? But we're going to find out right now. I'm going to go back in time. Let's see. Lily Berger. Lily Berger sends in let me go back and make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, good. I'm not missing anything. Lily Berger. A new name, I think. Lily Berger says, have you ever been to a party swinging it with two girls, one dressed as Alf and the other as a Minotaur, with midgets dressed as demons dancing around only to have the midgets run through the neighborhood with the cops chasing after demon midgets? Lily, I can honestly say I've never been to that party, but on the other hand, I can honestly say I really, really wish I did, because to me, that's the kind of party I'd like to go to. Willow is here. Willow says, how do you feel about the Deep Space Nine finale? I'm probably going to go into more details in a letter. What do you mean, probably? No. You are. I command it. But I didn't really like where they went with Sisko and Dukat. Willow, I have to agree with you. As much as I like Deep Space Nine, I did not like all the Pa-Wraith gobbledygook that they leaned into with Dukat and Sisko. It felt like a different series. And look, I'll be critical. I thought that stuff was, the Pa-Wraiths were more like horror movie villains, whereas the wormhole aliens, the prophets, whatever you want to call them, were interesting, thoughtful beings. I mean, the Pa-Wraiths were, I think it was something they kind of wrote themselves into a corner and they had to do something with them. But I think it was definitely not one of the series' high points. MCP Scotty, who we saw today. I need to fire my publicist, Rob. I got the name of my own YouTube channel wrong. The channel with the noble alligator is Murdered by Pirates. Well, MCP Scotty said you got to go check out his YouTube channel, Murdered by Pirates. I'm all for that. Here's to you. Here's to Murdered by Pirates. David Kukol says, my power died. We saw David. We met David. I got to speak with David for the first time. David Kukol sends in a super chat and says, my power died during the Zoom and I didn't get to say thank you. Do you mind if I show my art of your action figure when my local galleries reopen? Of course, please do. Please do. And see if we can get any pre-orders for the actual real action figures that we'll make. Louis Terrazas is here. Louis Terrazas said, I like your positivity, but to get deep as your title... I like your positivity, but to get deep as your title today suggests, humans think they're special, but we're just animals. Never deserved the planet. I agree, we're just animals, and we're stupid animals too. Even animals know their place in the natural order more than we do. But you know what? We deserve the planet. We're just as deserving as anyone else to be here. Are we deserving to keep the planet? Look, it's up to us. You know, it's funny. I don't understand why people... I've always thought about this when it comes to conservation and all that. And I know Elizabeth will laugh when I say this. But, like, if you think about it, would you live in a kitchen that was 10 to 25% dirty all the time? Like, would you just leave 10% of the garbage and your dirty dishes there all the time? Like, you wouldn't, right? You'd prefer to have your kitchen clean. Living in a dirty kitchen, creatures come to roost. Cockroaches, other ants, whatever. So having a dirty kitchen is not acceptable. So why is having a dirty planet acceptable? Like, our entire planet is a closed ecosystem. So any crap, literally crap, whether it's organic, whether it's biological crap or crap that we make, why is it acceptable? Why do we believe, I really do think that we have this mindset like, well, we can just take it outside and like when you flick your cigarette butt, like, and just flick it out. The other night on our walk, there was a guy smoking on his porch, and right before he got there, he flicked his cigarette butt out on the sidewalk. I've always thought to myself, what does he think's going to happen with that cigarette butt? Like, where does he think it's going to go? Is someone going to pick it up? Or is it going to get swept into a storm drain and swept out to sea? So his unfinished cigarette, well, his smoked cigarette, the butt itself, where does he think it's going to go? It's going to go out into the world. Like, somehow someone's going to deal with it, whether it's a creature in the ocean, whether it's somebody in a landfill, wherever. It's still going to be there. Like, it's always... I've always found it strange that we live in a closed ecosystem. Every single thing that we do or throw away, it doesn't go away. It's still here. It's just elsewhere. It's somewhere else. Like I don't understand why our mindset isn't like, well, let's just keep it clean. Like, where do we think that these things are going to wind up? Like, every night when we go on a walk with our dogs, there's something. Lately, there's been a lot of discarded face masks that people have been wearing. Discarded face masks, like in random spots. Even on sidewalks in residential neighborhoods, there is discarded face masks that people have been wearing. So presumably you hope they're not full of COVID, but they're full of anything. So our dogs walk by and they're like, what's this? Oh, it's right here. Maybe I'll check it out. Like, why is it on the sidewalk? I don't know. Our dogs will have to, our dogs, Gilbert will pick up any piece of paper. I don't know why he loves paper so much, but you think he's not going to put that in his mouth? He's a dog. He doesn't know the difference. He doesn't know there's a pandemic going on. He just, it's interesting. But what do people think is going to happen? I've never understood that. It's crazy. So, wait a minute. The Magic K says the creator of Neon Genesis Evangelion is going to create Shin Kamen Rider. Is that true? Anno is going to do Kamen Rider? Hideki is going to do Kamen Rider? That's pretty exciting. I loved Shin Godzilla. Shin Kamen Rider. I have the first Kamen Rider. I have a great quarter scale figure of that. It's pretty great. Louis Terraza says, Seaspiracy, it's like Suspiria, but Seaspiracy on Netflix says eating less fish is the only real answer. This just won't fly for 95% of our bros and sisters. I guess we're doomed, Robster. No, I don't think that that's necessarily true. I think what we need to do is we, again, like everything else, we need to figure out how can we do these things effectively. Are we feeding the most amount of people possible? Are we doing things the most efficient way? I think the way look, when you're trying to maximize profits, anytime profits are involved, which is all the time, when you're maximizing profits, you are by definition compromising the world somehow. And at the end of the day, are we going to wait until we hit a tipping point? I mean, if we figured out stuff before we get to the tipping point, it might be a little better. But we never think about that. We always wait till the last minute until things are dire. And then we try and bring it back from the brink, but we don't. Which is kind of frustrating. Med6814 sends in a super chat and says, I would like to thank you for all the wonderful entertainment and topics, Rob. This is just a simple thanks, and take it to heart, people. Take it to heart that people love you. Well, I don't know if they love me, but I really appreciate that. Thank you for the kind words. I very much appreciate that. I think we have a good community here. I mean, even after that Zoom call, everybody I meet on the Zoom call is so nice and interesting, and it's great. I think that, look, I mean, what YouTube is like the greatest communications technology between Zoom and YouTube and all these things that anybody can speak their mind and put it out on the net, and as long as they're respectful to other people. Isn't that amazing that we live in this time? It's incredible. No one has to be alone anymore. Not really. If they want to reach out, they can. Of course, I know we live in the privileged West where we can have this kind of technology. What about if you're poor and you don't have internet technology? That's true. We should make it, people like Jeff Bezos and, of course, Elon Musk want to make the internet available to all. But, I appreciate that. But they shouldn't just love me, although that's good. We should love our planet. We should love our ecosystem. We should love the continuum that we're a part of that sustain us, because it's pretty great. Bobby Hatchquall says, do you have Eartha Kitt's I Want to Be Evil on the Satanic set list? Because no. Best lyrics ever, including like something that seeks its level, I want to go to the devil, and I want to be nasty, I want to be cruel, I want to be daring, I want to shoot pool. Okay, that sounds great. I love Eartha Kitt, but she wants to be evil. It's not necessarily about the devil himself. That's kind of where I drew the line. It had to be either about the devil, although somebody pointed out that Highway to Hell is not really about going to hell. It's about going onto a highway in Australia. So that's interesting. I got to figure it out. Richard Kump is here. Hello, Richard. Good to see you today. Richard Kump says, Rob, thanks for hosting today's call. I liked how you brought up today's dichotomy between there being both real dumb and smart people when discussing space tech. It's like Idiocracy meets Star Trek. Can you think of sci-fi that explores this dichotomy? Well, I think From the Earth to the Moon does a pretty good job of that. I think it does. And I think this season, the push-pull between science and the military is pretty fun. But I think a lot of that, I mean, even, movies like Capricorn 1 get into that. Like what is the major benefit of space travel? I would say the biggest benefit is how difficult it is to travel in space, especially for humans to travel in space, and all of the innovation that occurs on the road to getting there. That will spill, whether it's medical technology, whether it's aerospace technology, it all is part of the same thing. And the blowback of space research and going into space is all of the technology that's being developed will eventually benefit mankind. It will trickle down into our world. It'll make us all better in some ways, I hope. Brandon G says, Rob, I'm looking forward to the movie Stowaway, as it falls square into one of my favorite subgenres, survival horror set in space. Everything about space is so unnervingly treacherous. I even consider Gravity to be a prime example of survival horror. Oh my God, dude. Gravity is one of the greatest examples of survival horror. Yes, it's a little ridiculous, but oh my God, talk about a movie that's dire. It is absolutely survival horror. And I agree with you. Survival horror in space, there's no more unforgiving environment. You don't need a monster. The environment itself is so treacherous, like you pointed out. That's why I love Aniara, the Swedish film. Talk about an existential crisis. That's survival horror. Watch that. Brandon goes on to say, Rob, in light of the Snyder Cut, Chris Columbus has recently been talking about an R-rated cut of Mrs. Doubtfire. A childhood fave of mine, it would be dope to see a harder edge applied to an already built-in creep cross-dressing concept. Would you watch this? Oh, hell yeah. Just because, Robin Williams is in it, I'd love to see an R-rated take on Mrs. Doubtfire. I can't even imagine. I'd watch it, though. Justin Jorgensen says, humans may be bad, but, however, we are responsible for the 2007 classic Transformers. So there's that. Well, Justin, I cannot argue. I mean, if you really think about it, whatever you think about the Transformers franchise, the amount of technology and resources and ingenuity that it was required to put that movie on film is pretty extraordinary. Look at the effects technology alone. That shot when you're outside of the Griffith Park Observatory and the camera's pushing in and you see the Transformers traversing the side of the wall. It's one of my favorite visual effects of all time. Love it. Imran Jabbar sends in a tip and says, Hi, Rob. What are your thoughts on Denis Villeneuve? I find he has quite the eye for cinema and makes the kinds of movies I want to see. Me too. Do you have a favorite of his? My personal favorite might be Incendies. That was his first film. A very haunting film. It has struck with me since. Incendies is really, really good. I really like that film, but I think it's tough. I think my favorite film of his might be Sicario. I think it might be just because to me, I just like the subject matter and it's so fully realized. But Incendies is really good. Definitely right up there. And of course, I like all of his movies for the most part. Even though they're not always the most pleasant reading experiences or watching experiences in general. Claudius is here. Monsieur Robert. In a world where Atlantis was real, they would probably be the superpower that influenced the world. So if Aquaman and or Namor were leaders of the free world, what would we all eat? That's a very good question. Maybe we still might eat fish, because in the continuum of the sea, smaller fish consume larger fish consume smaller fish up that whole food chain. I just think that, that we would respect that fish. We would respect, what do the Atlanteans eat? So, Ooh, Magic K. Kotaku's reporting that the creator of Neon Genesis Evangelion is going to direct the Kamen Rider movie, which is amazing. Let me put that in here. So here you go. That is now in the live chat. Claudia says about fish. Dolphins are active predators and eat a wide variety of fishes, squids, and crustaceans such as shrimps. Would they be bad actors in an Atlantean Earth? No, I don't think so. I think that, but I bet that dolphins only eat what they need. Dolphins are not factory farming other fish. Or maybe they are. Maybe when they swim in schools, they are doing that in a way. But yeah, I think that they should. I don't think they'd be bad actors in an Atlantean Earth. It's taking more than they need. It's keeping fish in bad conditions. So, Stub McShave says, I think Highway to Hell should count for the playlist. It was written about the life of constant touring, but they're paying their due to Satan to get to their version of the Promised Land. I agree. That's why I chose it. It is absolutely, I think it's absolutely a valid satanic. I mean, it is Highway to Hell, regardless. I think euphemistically you can say that because even though they're alluding to hell, I think definitely it is certainly a part of that. 100%. I agree with you. Absolutely. 100%. I do. Yes, I do. Well, listen, ladies and gentlemen, kind souls, gentle beings from across the 28 known galaxies. I'm going to bring this episode to an end because I am going to meet Brett Pierce, who's been on the show, who directed The Wretched, and I'm going to take him his 4K media books that Dieter Bastian sent. I'm going to have Dieter Bastian's media books signed by him, and there we go. So I love this Easter Eve chat. I want to thank you very much. I want to thank everybody who are members joining in on the Zoom call, the members Zoom calls today. I love these members Zoom calls. If you want to join in on them, become a member of the channel. And we're going to be doing all kinds of things, but we do them bi-weekly Zoom calls. You can ask me anything and all of that. So that's kind of fun. I think I'll be back tomorrow. Certainly whining about movies, Godzilla versus Kong is tomorrow, and I will also be showing Elizabeth's movie Doll Quest, which you can comment on. She actually has it on her own. If you want to see a preview of it, it is on her own YouTube page, so go check that out. So tomorrow night, whining about movies, Godzilla versus Kong. Woohoo! So join us for that. And tomorrow during the day, I got to find out if we're going to do Let's Get Physical Media. I would say probably yes. I'm also on Purple Valkyrie's stream tomorrow. I think that's at noon. So we might have Let's Get Physical Media earlier than normal. Either way, I will see you tomorrow on Easter Sunday. He is arisen, and watch out because he's hungry for flesh. That's what I like to say. But remember, I want to say thank you to my moderating staff, to Mike Bodden, to the Richard, to Louise X Sparrow, to Bunyan Snipe, to Joshua Levesque, to Justin Jorgensen, to Greg Smith. Let's see who else is here. We got a full crew. I think that's everybody. Did I say Justin Jorgensen? I want to thank my moderating staff for all the tireless work they do on behalf of the channel. I want to thank everybody out there for supporting the channel via super chats and tips and all that. I want to thank everybody who writes letters. You can write me a letter free of charge at theburnettwork.net, and if it's good, I'll read it. Make it legible, make it interesting, make it shareable. Would it be a letter that you want to hear if somebody else wrote it and I was reading it to you? I want to thank you all for doing that as well. And again, every day we're going to be giving away more Skyfighter Blu-rays and CDs in that beautiful 2-pack. And on that note, I will say every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear, and all you have to do is listen. And on that note, I say to all of you, have a better day.